In the peaceful neighborhood of Maple Grove, residents take pride in their well-kept homes and friendly relationships with their neighbors. Colorful gardens bloom in front yards, children play together in the streets, and everyone seems to know each other by name. This sense of community is cherished, but it is not without its own set of rules. The Homeowners Association, HOA, has strict regulations concerning home improvements and outdoor lighting to ensure everyone's comfort and safety. As part of these guidelines, homeowners are required to seek approval from the HOA before making any significant changes, particularly those that might affect others. This includes installing security lights, fences, or other structures. Ensuring that any outdoor lighting is not overly bright or intrusive helps maintain the cozy atmosphere that everyone loves. One sunny afternoon, Karen, a longtime resident known for her meticulous lawn care, confronted her neighbor about a newly installed motion-activated security light. She claimed that it was too bright and blinded her dog at night. The light shone directly into her yard, disrupting her dog's peaceful sleep. Feeling upset, she decided to take action and contacted the HOA to voice her concerns. This small complaint would soon spiral into a much larger issue, shaking the foundation of this tight-knit community. As the HOA considered Karen's complaint seriously and prepared to issue a warning to her neighbor, tensions began to loom overhead. Little did anyone know that this dispute would lead to revelations about another resident's home improvement, one that would turn the tables in unexpected ways. The intertwined lives and hidden surprises of Maple Grove were about to unfold, revealing how simple complaints could lead to unforeseen consequences. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over Maple Grove, Karen sat on her porch with her dog, Max. Though usually a serene time of day, Karen found herself increasingly frustrated. Her neighbor, Joe, had recently installed a new motion-activated security light that beamed like a lighthouse into her yard. Each night, as soon as the sun set, the light would flicker on at the slightest movement, flooding her patio with bright illumination. Max was not just any dog, he was sensitive to changes in his environment. Whenever that light activated, it would startle him awake and send him pacing around the yard, unable to settle down. Karen noticed that he began to bark more and seemed anxious. This disruption bothered her deeply, prompting her to take action. After all, a calm home was essential for both her and Max's well-being. Driven by concern for her dog's comfort, she decided to confront Joe first. When she knocked on his door one afternoon, she explained how the bright light affected Max's sleep and overall mood. However, Joe was taken aback. He believed he had made a practical choice to enhance security and never intended for it to disturb anyone. Feeling unheard after their discussion, Karen turned to the HOA for help. In her complaint, she emphasized how intrusive the light was and how it impacted not only her dog's rest but also the peacefulness of their shared environment. She felt confident that the HOA would recognize the potential problem and take action. Soon after submitting her complaint, she anxiously awaited a response from the HOA, hoping they would issue a warning to Joe about his disruptive light. Little did she know that this complaint would lead to unexpected revelations that could alter everything in their neighborhood. The day after Karen submitted her complaint to the HOA, a meeting was held to discuss various neighborhood issues. The gentle hum of conversation filled the room as board members reviewed complaints from residents. When Karen's grievance about Joe's security light was brought to the table, murmurs of agreement passed among the members. They understood how such disturbances could quickly disrupt the peace of their well-loved community. Sitting at the head of the table, Mrs. Thompson, the HOA president, shared her thoughts on the matter. "We need to ensure that each homeowner's right to privacy and comfort is respected," she said, her voice steady. "Let's not forget our mission, to maintain a harmonious neighborhood." With nods of approval, the board agreed that Karen's complaint warranted immediate attention. After a brief discussion, it was decided that a warning would be issued to Joe regarding his motion-activated security light. The board felt it would be a reasonable step, allowing Joe an opportunity to adjust or remove the light before taking further action. The board prepared a letter detailing Karen's concerns and outlining their regulations on outdoor lighting. Meanwhile, Karen anxiously awaited news, hoping her efforts would finally lead to a solution for Max's restless nights. She imagined a future where they could both enjoy peaceful evenings again without that blinding light interrupting their calm. Later that week, a notification letter was sent to Joe, informing him of the HOA's decision and explaining Karen's complaint. The board emphasized the importance of adhering to community guidelines and encouraged him to respond promptly. They hoped this warning would resolve matters amicably. However, they could not foresee how this decision would spark a chain reaction that would bring new truths to light in Maple Grove. Upon receiving the HOA's warning letter, Joe felt a whirlwind of emotions. He had intended to enhance the security of his home when he installed the motion-activated light, but now he was being called out for disrupting a neighbor's peace. Confused and slightly defensive, he realized that he needed to take action to protect himself and his home. Instead of simply turning down the light, Joe decided to explore the situation further. He began by chatting with other neighbors to gather their thoughts. To his surprise, several of them were affected by bright lights in the area, including Karen's floodlight that had been mentioned in passing by some residents. Curious about what was really going on, he took a stroll to investigate Karen's backyard. Peering over from a safe distance, Joe could see the massive floodlight illuminating a significant portion of the neighborhood. The brightness was startling and certainly seemed to shine into other homes. Concerned that this could pose a serious issue not just for him but for others as well, he grabbed his phone and snapped a few pictures for documentation. Feeling more resolute in his quest for answers, Joe decided to dig deeper. He researched local regulations regarding outdoor lighting installations and discovered that permits were required for large fixtures like Karen's floodlight. This only fueled his determination to address what he felt was an unfair situation. If Karen had installed her floodlight without proper permission, then why should the HOA enforce its regulations only on him? With newfound information in hand, Joe felt it was important to report this potentially unlawful installation to the HOA and perhaps even call for a city inspector. He considered that this might not only help him but could also create a more equitable environment for everyone in Maple Grove. Little did he know, this investigation would prompt a series of events that would escalate tensions in the community even further. As Joe continued his investigation, he felt a mix of determination and concern. Armed with his phone and a few notes on local lighting regulations, he returned to Karen's backyard for a closer look at her floodlight. Standing at the edge of his property, he peered over the fence and took in the sight. The massive fixture was mounted high, casting a strong beam that illuminated not just Karen's yard but also spilled light onto neighboring homes. The brightness was striking, and Joe could easily see how it would disrupt anyone trying to enjoy an evening on their patio or put their kids to bed. He noticed it shone directly into the windows of two homes nearby, making him realize that Karen's floodlight might be causing more disturbance than his own security light ever did. This realization fueled his resolve even more. If he felt uncomfortable with the light from his neighbor's security system, others must feel the same way about Karen's installation. As he walked back home, Joe reviewed what he had learned about HOA regulations concerning outdoor lighting. It became clear that large fixtures like Karen's required a permit before installation, something that she had likely overlooked or ignored. This understanding changed everything for Joe. He no longer felt solely like a victim of circumstances but rather as someone who could seek fairness for himself and others in the neighborhood. With newfound purpose, Joe decided to take action. He gathered his evidence, photos of Karen's floodlight and notes on the disturbances it caused, and prepared to present them to the HOA. He understood that this was not just about him anymore, it was about ensuring that all residents respected community rules and maintained a pleasant living environment for everyone in Maple Grove. Little did he know, this decision would set off a chain reaction of events that would alter the dynamics of their neighborhood forever. With his evidence in hand and a newfound sense of purpose, Joe decided it was time to take the next step in addressing the situation with Karen's floodlight. Knowing that the matter extended beyond his own home, he considered how many neighbors were affected by the intrusive light. Determined to seek a resolution not just for himself but for everyone disturbed, he reached out to a city inspector. On a crisp morning, Joe made the phone call and explained the circumstances surrounding Karen's floodlight. He detailed his findings about its brightness and unpermitted installation and expressed concern for how it impacted several homes in their vicinity. The inspector listened carefully and assured Joe that an inspection could be arranged to assess the floodlight's compliance with local codes. As the days passed, anticipation grew. Joe felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He wanted to ensure fairness within their community while also grappling with the possibility of tension with Karen. He knew they had been neighbors for years, and this situation was complicating their relationship. Nevertheless, he believed it was essential to uphold community rules. When the city inspector finally arrived at Maple Grove, Joe was present to point out the floodlight along with other concerned neighbors who shared his feelings about its disruptive nature. The inspector examined Karen's installation carefully, noting how bright it shone into multiple properties and confirming it had no required permits. After gathering all necessary information, the inspector informed Joe and the neighbors that a formal notice would be sent to Karen about the illegal installation. There would simply be no way around compliance if they wanted to maintain peace within their neighborhood. Feeling a mix of satisfaction and apprehension about what might unfold next between residents, Joe hoped that this action would lead not only to changes in Karen's backyard but also reinvigorate respect for community guidelines in Maple Grove. Little did he realize just how much this process would ripple throughout their once friendly neighborhood. The day finally arrived when the city inspector was scheduled to assess Karen's floodlight. Joe felt a rush of anticipation and nervousness as he stood outside with a few interested neighbors, all eager to see what the inspector would conclude. The bright sun overhead provided a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere surrounding the inspection. When the city inspector's vehicle pulled into Maple Grove, it brought a sense of both relief and anxiety to Joe. The inspector, a seasoned professional named Mr. Anderson, stepped out and greeted the group with a friendly nod before heading towards Karen's house. Joe introduced himself and briefly explained the concerns raised about the floodlight and its impact on the community. As Mr. Anderson approached Karen's backyard, he took out his measuring tools, clipboard, and a light meter to assess the brightness of the floodlight. The neighbors watched closely as he examined how far the light spread across adjacent properties. With each passing minute, tension mounted. They all understood that much was at stake. After meticulously reviewing Karen's installation, Mr. Anderson turned back towards Joe and the other onlookers. "I'm afraid I have some bad news," he said, noting how the bright light shone into several homes and exceeded permissible levels for residential lighting. He explained that under local regulations, any outdoor lighting that causes disturbances or shines into neighboring properties must adhere to strict guidelines, and Karen's floodlight clearly violated those rules. Mr. Anderson confirmed that it had been installed without obtaining the necessary permits, adding a layer of seriousness to the situation. With his findings documented, Mr. Anderson assured everyone present that a formal notice would be drafted for Karen regarding her non-compliance with local laws. As he wrapped up his assessment, Joe felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. While he was glad action was being taken, he also knew this would likely escalate matters between him and Karen. The other neighbors expressed their gratitude to Joe for taking initiative in addressing these issues in their community. Little did they know that this moment was just one step in a much larger unraveling that would test their friendships in Maple Grove. After the city inspector issued his formal notice to Karen, the atmosphere in Maple Grove shifted. Joe and his neighbors collectively held their breath as they awaited Karen's response. It didn't take long for her to receive the news about her floodlight being deemed a nuisance. A ripple of tension filled the neighborhood as Karen processed what this meant for her. Determined to comply with the regulations but reluctant to dismantle something she had invested in, Karen grappled with mixed feelings. She felt embarrassed and frustrated about how her decisions had escalated into a sizable issue among neighbors she once considered friends. Yet, the reality was clear: following Mr. Anderson's directive, her floodlight had to be removed. On an overcast Saturday morning, a crew arrived at Karen's house to take down the massive floodlight under the inspector's order. As they worked, Joe and other curious neighbors observed from a distance, some exchanging sympathetic glances with one another. No one was celebrating this moment, but there was an air of relief that the disturbance would finally come to an end. As the workers climbed up to detach the floodlight, Karen stepped outside, arms crossed and face clouded with both anger and regret. Confronted by witnessing her home transformation into a site of scrutiny, she felt vulnerable. Some neighbors waved or offered encouragement while others silently turned away, unsure of what to say or how to bridge the growing rift among them. Once removed, it became apparent that without the floodlight's stark brightness flooding her backyard, there would be a significant change in the overall ambience of the homes surrounding hers. Even Max seemed calmer on that first night without blinding light disrupting his rest. While it marked an end to one conflict, beneath the surface it did little to heal relationships that were now strained. Tensions lingered in Maple Grove as everyone pondered what these events meant for their community moving forward. Reassurance of neighborly goodwill appeared overshadowed by uncertainty. Little did they know that this was just the beginning of deeper challenges ahead for all involved. In the aftermath of the floodlight removal, the HOA convened once more to discuss the implications of Karen's installation and its fallout within Maple Grove. The tension that had permeated the neighborhood was palpable, and community members gathered with a mix of curiosity and concern about how to restore harmony. Mrs. Thompson, the HOA president, opened the meeting with a thoughtful expression. "We must address this situation formally," she said, her voice steady. "Karen's floodlight was not only a nuisance but also a violation of our community rules. We need to ensure that everyone understands the importance of compliance." As members shared their thoughts, it became clear that this incident was about more than just one floodlight. It represented a breakdown in neighborly communication and trust. Joe, who had initially driven the complaint, spoke up. "I didn't mean for it to come to this," he admitted. "I just wanted my family and neighbors to feel comfortable in their homes." The board acknowledged Joe's perspective while also emphasizing that Karen's actions had consequences that extended beyond her backyard. They discussed how essential it was for all residents to adhere to community standards in order to foster a sense of unity and belonging. After much deliberation, it was decided that Karen would receive a formal citation for her non-compliance, which would serve as both a warning and a reminder of the importance of following established guidelines. As the meeting concluded, the board members felt a renewed responsibility not only to enforce rules but also to encourage open dialogue among residents. They recognized the need for future workshops or neighborhood gatherings to strengthen connections and facilitate discussions about concerns before they escalated. While Karen would face the repercussions of her floodlight installation, there was hope that this incident could serve as a turning point for Maple Grove, a chance for neighbors to come together, rebuild trust, and recommit to creating a supportive and respectful community environment where everyone felt heard and valued. In reflecting on the events that unfolded in Maple Grove, it became evident that Karen's actions had significant consequences not only for herself but for the entire community. Her frustration with Joe's security light led to a chain reaction that exposed deeper issues related to communication and compliance with HOA regulations. The removal of her floodlight served as a reminder of how crucial it is for residents to adhere to established guidelines, intended to foster a harmonious living environment. Had Karen communicated her concerns directly with Joe about his security light, the situation might have been resolved amicably without escalating to complaints and inspections. Open dialogue could have bridged the gap between neighbors, allowing them to find common ground and maintain their friendships. Instead, misunderstandings grew, resulting in tensions that lingered long after the floodlight was taken down. The HOA's formal citation of Karen highlighted the importance of following community rules. These regulations exist not to stifle creativity or personal expression, but rather to protect the interests and comfort of all residents. When one person disregards these standards, it can lead to disturbances that affect many others. It became clear that compliance with such regulations is essential for preserving the neighborhood's charm and sense of belonging. Moving forward, the residents of Maple Grove recognized the need for proactive measures. They decided to organize community workshops focused on open communication and adherence to HOA guidelines. These gatherings would provide an opportunity for neighbors to discuss their concerns before they escalated into conflicts, fostering a culture of cooperation and understanding. As the community began to heal from this incident, there was hope that the lessons learned would help build stronger relationships among neighbors. In a place where everyone valued their connection to one another, the goal was to ensure that Maple Grove remained a welcoming and harmonious environment for all.